The alien ships appeared in Earth's orbit without warning, just as they had done 3 years ago during first contact. But this time they brought something different. Something that glittered in the starlight like a promise and a trap combined into one. Ambassador Sarah Chen floated in the observation deck of humanity's orbital station, watching the massive vessels position themselves in perfect formation. She had been studying alien cultures for 3 years now, ever since the Galactic Council had made themselves known to Earth. She thought she understood them. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The delegation arrived in a shuttle that seemed to be made of liquid silver. When the doors opened, 5 aliens stepped out. Each one represented a different species from the Council. There was Executor Varn, a towering being covered in crystalline plates. Beside him stood Matriarch Isala, whose body shifted between solid and gas. The others were equally impressive and equally strange to human eyes, but Sarah barely noticed them. Her attention was fixed on what they carried between them. A throne. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. The seat seemed to be carved from a single massive crystal that pulsed with inner light. Symbols she couldn't read flowed across its surface like water. Ambassador Chen, Executor Varn's voice came through the translator, deep and resonant. "We bring you a great honor. This is Earth's throne, crafted in your honor by the oldest artisans in the galaxy. It awaits you in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council." Sarah blinked. "A throne? I don't understand." Matriarch Isala drifted forward, her form solidifying into something almost humanoid. "Every member species of the Galactic Council has a throne. It is your seat of power, your voice in the governance of the galaxy. With this throne comes respect, protection, and a place among the great civilizations." It sounded wonderful, too wonderful. Sarah had learned in her years of diplomatic service that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. "What does accepting this throne require?" she asked carefully. The aliens exchanged glances. It was Executor Varn who answered. "Merely that you accept the 47 protocols. They are the ancient laws that govern all civilized species. They have maintained peace and order for 10,000 years." Sarah felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. "May I see these protocols?" Another alien, a reptilian creature named Consul Thex, produced a data crystal. "Of course. We expected you would wish to review them. These are not demands, Ambassador. They are the foundation of galactic civilization." Sarah took the crystal and immediately sent it to Earth's analysis teams. Then she invited the delegation to wait in comfortable quarters, while humanity reviewed the protocols. The aliens agreed, confident and relaxed. They had done this hundreds of times before with other species. The answer was always yes. For 3 days, Sarah watched as Earth's best legal minds, scientists, and military strategists tore apart the 47 protocols. What they found made her blood run cold. Protocol 7 required all member species to share any military technology with the Council within 6 months of development. Protocol 12 limited the size of any species' military fleet. Protocol 23 required approval from the Council before colonizing any new star system. Protocol 31 mandated population controls based on Council calculations of sustainable growth. The list went on. Each protocol seemed reasonable on its surface, designed to prevent war and promote peace, but together they formed something else entirely. A cage, a set of chains disguised as honor. Dr. James Martinez, Earth's chief xenotechnology expert, summed it up in a late-night meeting. "If we accept these protocols, we give up our independence. We'll never be able to defend ourselves without permission. We'll never expand beyond what they allow. We'll be permanent children in a galaxy of adults who make all the rules. But if we refuse," Sarah said quietly, "we'll be alone. No allies, no trade, no access to their technology or knowledge." "We've been alone before," replied General Amara Okonkwo, her West African accent thick with determination. "We survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. We made it to space on our own. We can keep going on our own." President Zhao Chen joined the video call from Beijing. "What concerns me is Protocol 43, the one about correction of deviant civilizations. It's vague enough to mean anything they want it to mean." Sarah nodded. She had been worried about the same thing. If humanity refused the throne and then didn't follow galactic norms, the Council had given itself permission to correct them. She didn't need a translator to know what that meant. The next day, Sarah met with the delegation again. They were expecting her to arrive with formal acceptance. Instead, she came with a simple statement prepared by Earth's united government. Executor Varn, Matriarch Isala honored delegates, she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Humanity has carefully reviewed the 47 protocols. We have considered the great honor you offer us. The aliens leaned forward slightly, anticipating her acceptance. And we must respectfully decline. The silence that followed was absolute. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. The aliens stared at her as if she had spoken in a language their translators couldn't process. Finally, Executor Varn found his voice. Decline? Ambassador, perhaps you misunderstand. This is not an offer that can be declined. Every species in the galaxy accepts their throne. It is the way things are done. Then humanity will be the first to do things differently, Sarah replied. We appreciate the Council's offer, but we cannot accept terms that would require us to surrender our sovereignty. We wish to be friends with the Council, to trade and learn from you, but as equals, not as subordinates. Matriarch Isala's form flickered with what might have been agitation. You would choose isolation? Humanity is young, barely learning to walk among the stars. Without the Council's guidance, you will struggle. You will fail. Perhaps, Sarah acknowledged, but we will fail or succeed on our own terms. The throne is beautiful, and I'm sure it was crafted with great care. But Earth's throne will remain empty, because humanity doesn't need permission to exist in this galaxy. The delegation left within the hour, their silver shuttle departing without ceremony. Sarah watched them go and wondered if she had just made the worst mistake in human history, or the best decision humanity had ever made. Below her, on Earth, billions of people waited to hear what she had done. When the announcement came, reactions were mixed. Some were terrified. Others were angry. But most felt something they hadn't expected to feel. Pride. Humanity had been offered a seat at the table of galactic civilization and had the courage to say no. The throne would remain empty, not because humanity wasn't worthy, but because they refused to pay the price of admission. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, 10,000 light-years away, Earth's throne sat in its designated spot. Beautiful, gleaming, and waiting. The other species stared at it in disbelief. In 10,000 years of galactic history, every throne had been filled within days of being offered. Earth's throne sat empty. And the galaxy would never be quite the same. 6 months after Ambassador Chen refused the throne, humanity began to understand the true cost of their defiance. It started quietly. Trade agreements that had been under negotiation suddenly stalled. Alien merchants who had been eager to sell their goods to Earth's markets stopped responding to messages. Scientific exchanges that had promised to share advanced technologies were politely canceled. One by one, the doors that had begun to open for humanity slammed shut. Captain David Park stood on the bridge of the merchant vessel Prosperity, staring at his communication screen in frustration. He had traveled to the Kepler station, a massive trading hub run by the Thalaxian Commerce Guild, with a hold full of Earth's finest goods. Platinum, rare Earth elements, art, and cultural items that aliens had shown interest in before. Sir, they're denying us docking permission again, his communications officer reported. That's the 5th time this week. David slammed his fist on the armrest. Did they give a reason? The same one as always. Regulatory compliance issues. It's garbage, sir. We meet every safety standard they have. David knew the truth. This wasn't about regulations. This was about the Council sending a message. Trade with humanity, and you'll lose your privileges in Council space. It was extortion dressed up as bureaucracy. Back on Earth, the situation was becoming clearer. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Earth's liaison for scientific cooperation, sat in her office reviewing the data. Every single research partnership with alien institutions had been terminated. Universities across known space that had welcomed human students now claimed they had no room. Technology sharing agreements were voided, citing security concerns. She called Ambassador Chen, who was now permanently stationed on the orbital platform that served as Earth's diplomatic headquarters. Sarah, we're being blacklisted, Yuki said bluntly. Every species in the Council has been told to cut ties with us. Sarah nodded wearily. She had been expecting this. The Council wants to teach us a lesson. They think if they isolate us, we'll realize our mistake and accept the throne. Will we? Yuki asked. Sarah looked out at Earth, the blue marble hanging in the void. Not if I have anything to say about it. But Yuki, we need to be realistic. We're alone now. Really alone. We need to adapt. Adapting meant changing everything about humanity's approach to space. Within weeks, Earth's governments called an emergency summit in Geneva. Every nation sent representatives. The discussions were heated, but for once everyone agreed on the fundamentals. Humanity needed to become self-sufficient and fast. General Okonkwo presented the military assessment. We have some alien technology samples from before the isolation began. Not much, but enough to study. Our scientists believe they can reverse engineer the basics of their FTL drives within 5 years if we dedicate resources to it. 5 years is too long, argued Minister Zhang from the Chinese delegation. The council could move against us before then. Then we work faster, replied President Silva of Brazil. We pool our resources. Every nation contributes. This isn't about national pride anymore. This is about human survival. The summit resulted in the United Earth Initiative, the most ambitious cooperative project in human history. Every space-capable nation would contribute technology, resources, and personnel to a single goal, making humanity independent of the galactic community that had rejected them. But not everyone in the galaxy was happy with the Council's decision. Kess, a Valorian scientist who had briefly worked with human researchers during the contact period, watched the isolation with growing unease. She had liked the humans. They were curious, creative, and surprisingly kind. The Council's response seemed cruel to her. Against the direct orders of her government, Kess sent an encrypted message to Dr. Tanaka. It took 3 weeks to reach Earth through hidden channels, but when it arrived, it changed everything. The message was simple but terrifying. The Council is not just isolating you. They are preparing to contain you. Within a decade, they plan to establish an enforcement perimeter around your space. You will not be allowed to expand beyond your current system. They believe you will either accept the throne or slowly die out. I'm sorry. I wish I could do more. A friend. Sarah read the message 3 times before calling an emergency meeting of Earth's leadership. The holographic faces of presidents, prime ministers, and generals filled the room. They're going to cage us, she said simply. Not destroy us, but trap us in our own solar system until we give up. The room erupted in angry voices. Some called for building weapons. Others wanted to try diplomacy again. General Okonkwo's voice cut through the chaos. We need to move now, not in 5 years now. We establish colonies beyond this system before they can lock us in. Small ones, hidden ones in places they're not watching closely. We spread out so they can't bottle us up in one place. With what ships? Someone asked. We don't have FTL yet. Then we use what we have, Sarah said, her mind racing. Generation ships. Sleeper ships. Old technology, but it works. We send people out now on slower-than-light drives to nearby systems. By the time the Council realizes what we're doing, we'll already be there. It was a desperate plan, but no one had a better one. Within months, humanity began converting massive colony ships for long voyages. Volunteers signed up by the thousands, willing to sleep for decades to reach new worlds. They would be the seeds of humanity's future, planted before the Council could burn the field. Meanwhile, the reverse engineering project made unexpected progress. The human engineers approached alien technology differently than the aliens expected. Where other species tried to copy what they saw, humans asked why it worked that way and looked for alternatives. Dr. Martinez made the breakthrough. We can't build their drives exactly, he explained in a presentation to Earth's leadership. Their technology relies on exotic matter we can't manufacture yet. But we can create something similar using quantum field manipulation. It'll be louder, less efficient, and shorter range, but it'll work. And most importantly, it's ours on how long? Sarah asked. 2 years for a working prototype. Maybe 3 for something we can put in a ship. It wasn't fast enough to avoid the Council's containment, but it was faster than anyone had hoped. Humanity had something now that they'd been missing for 6 months. Hope. As the first-generation ships departed for distant stars, moving at a fraction of light speed on journeys that would take decades, the people of Earth watched with mixed emotions. Those ships carried their children, their dreams, and their defiance. On the bridge of the colony ship New Horizon, Captain Rebecca Stone looked back at Earth one last time before entering cryosleep. She thought about the empty throne sitting in the Council chambers waiting for humanity to submit. Let it gather dust, she whispered to herself. We're not coming back to claim it. We're going forward instead. The Council, in their ancient chambers 10,000 light-years away, congratulated themselves on handling the human problem. The young species would learn. They always did. In a few years, a decade at most, Earth would realize their mistake. The throne would be filled, and order would be maintained. They had no idea that humanity had already slipped through their fingers, moving toward a future the Council hadn't planned for and couldn't control. The cage was being built, but the bird had already learned to fly. 5 years after refusing the throne, humanity unveiled their miracle. The Prometheus drive ignited for the first time in the test vessel Explorer, and Captain James Rodriguez felt the ship slip into faster-than-light travel. It wasn't smooth like the alien drives he'd experienced. The Prometheus drive howled, sending vibrations through every deck plate. It was inefficient, consuming more energy than any Council ship would tolerate, and it was loud, broadcasting humanity's presence across the stars like a shout in a quiet library. But it was theirs, built by human hands from human understanding. No Council approval needed, no permission required. "We have FTL, Earth Control," James reported, trying to keep the emotion out of his voice and failing. Humanity just earned its wings. Back on Earth, in the command center beneath Geneva, thousands of scientists, engineers, and officials erupted in celebration. They had done what the Council said would take them decades. They had done it in 5 years through pure human stubbornness and refusal to give up. Ambassador Chen, older now with gray streaking her black hair, allowed herself a rare smile. "Begin the expansion protocol," she ordered. "Let's see what's out there beyond the Council's maps." The Council had made a critical mistake. They had isolated humanity, yes, but isolation meant humans explored alone, without Council observers reporting their every move. And humans had always been good at finding things others had missed. Captain Maria Santos commanded the exploration vessel Discovery when it happened. Her ship was mapping systems that the Council charts listed as unremarkable. She was about to find out why the Council hadn't bothered looking closely. "Captain, I'm picking up artificial structures on the third moon," her sensor officer called out. "Multiple settlements. They're inhabited." Maria felt her heart race. "Any Council ships in the system?" "Negative. We're alone out here." Maria made a decision that would change the galaxy. "Take us in slowly. Broadcast on all frequencies. Let them know we come in peace." The beings they met called themselves the Creche. They were small, barely reaching Maria's waist, with 4 arms and eyes that seemed too large for their heads. They lived in domed cities on a moon that barely had enough atmosphere to breathe. Through laborious translation, Maria learned their story. The Creche were one of dozens of species living on the edges of Council space. They called themselves the Scattered Peoples. They had territories too small to matter, resources too limited to attract attention, and populations too tiny to threaten anyone. But they paid. Oh, how they paid. "The Council enforcers come twice a year," explained Elder Vix, the leader of the largest Creche settlement. "They demand tribute, metal, food, manufactured goods. They call it protection fees to maintain galactic security. But they protect us from nothing. There are no threats out here." "How long has this been going on?" Maria asked. "Since my grandmother's grandmother's time. Maybe longer. We have paid for 300 cycles." Maria felt anger burning in her chest. This was what the 47 protocols protected. A system where the strong took from the weak and called it civilization. "Elder Vix," Maria said carefully, "what if I told you there's another way?" Over the next 6 months, Discovery and other human ships made contact with 17 different species of scattered peoples. Some were refugees from Council space who had fled persecution. Others were species that had developed space travel too late, arriving at the galactic stage to find all the good territories claimed. All of them were trapped in the same cycle, too weak to resist, too useful to ignore, condemned to pay tribute forever. Maria offered them something revolutionary: trade agreements with no strings attached. Fair prices for goods, technology sharing that went both ways, and most shocking of all, defensive alliances that didn't require submission. "But why?" asked a Thalian merchant captain named Zarek, his tentacles twitching with suspicion. "What do you want from us?" "Partners," Maria replied simply. "The Council wants subjects. We want friends. We're alone out here, and so are you. Together, maybe we're not so alone anymore." The news of humanity's activities reached the council chambers like a slowly spreading poison. At first they dismissed it. Humans building alliances with insignificant species? Let them. It changed nothing, but then the reports kept coming. Humans weren't just trading with the scattered peoples. They were teaching them, sharing technology, helping them upgrade their defenses, building a network of mutual support that operated entirely outside council authority. Executor Varn called an emergency session. This cannot be tolerated. The humans are disrupting the established order. They're trading with species we consider beneath notice, Matriarch Isala pointed out.
Why do we care?
Because other species are watching, Varn replied grimly. Already some of our tributary worlds are asking questions. If the scattered peoples can refuse to pay tribute because they have human protection, how long before our own subjects demand the same? The council dispatched a battle fleet to reinforce their point. 12 warships, more than enough to intimidate any minor species, jumped into the system where Maria Santos was meeting with a coalition of scattered peoples' representatives. Admiral Korth commanded the council fleet. His orders were clear: escort the human ships back to their territory. Use force if necessary, but avoid actually destroying them. The council wanted humanity humbled, not martyred. Human vessel discovery. Korth's message came through cold and formal. You are operating in violation of established territorial boundaries. You will power down your drives and prepare to be escorted back to your designated space. Maria looked at the representatives around her conference table. The Kresh, the Thalians, the Valorians who had defected to join the growing alliance. They all looked scared. The council fleet outgunned Discovery by a huge margin. Admiral Korth, Maria replied, keeping her voice steady. We are conducting legitimate trade and diplomatic discussions. We have violated no laws. The 47 protocols govern all civilized behavior in this galaxy. Your presence here disturbs the established order. We never accepted the 47 protocols, Maria said. You can't hold us to rules we never agreed to follow. There was a long pause. Maria could almost hear Korth's teeth grinding across the void. You will comply, or we will force compliance. Then try, Maria said, and cut the channel. What happened next would be debated in military academies for decades. Admiral Korth, confident in his overwhelming firepower, ordered his ships to close with Discovery and prepare boarding actions. He intended to seize the human vessel and bring its crew back to council space for judgment. He had no idea that humanity had spent 5 years preparing for exactly this moment. Discovery's escorts, 4 human warships that had been hanging back, suddenly appeared on sensors as their stealth systems dropped. They weren't designed for stealth the way council ships were. They were designed to hide in the noise of the Prometheus drive's signature, making them invisible until they wanted to be seen. Admiral, we have multiple human warships at close range, Korth's sensor officer reported, his voice rising in panic. Before Korth could respond, every council ship in his fleet lost power simultaneously. Their engines went dead. Life support continued, but weapons, shields, and drives were completely offline. Maria's face appeared on Korth's view screen. Your ships are undamaged, Admiral. My people just convinced your computer systems to take a nap. In about 4 hours, they'll reboot on their own and you can go home. But understand this. Humanity can defend itself and our allies. We don't want war. We don't want to conquer anyone. But we will not be bullied. Korth stared at her in shock. This is an act of war. No, Maria corrected. War is what we would have done if we wanted your ships destroyed. This is a demonstration. Go back to the council and tell them that Earth's throne is still empty, and it's staying that way. And tell them that any species who wants to deal with us is free to do so. We're not going anywhere. As Discovery and its escorts jumped to FTL, leaving the disabled council fleet behind, Maria allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had just thrown down a challenge that couldn't be ignored. The empty throne wasn't just a symbol anymore. It was a declaration of independence that the whole galaxy could see. 8 years after the throne was offered and refused, the galaxy learned the truth. Kes had been planning her defection for months. The Valorian scientist had watched with growing horror as the council tightened its grip on information about humanity. Military reports were classified, trade data was restricted, even cultural exchanges were monitored and controlled. The council was afraid and fear made them dangerous. She stole what she could. Files, recordings, historical archives that told the real story of the Galactic Council. Then she boarded a small research vessel, claimed she was conducting a survey mission, and pointed her ship toward human space. It took 3 weeks to reach Earth's orbital station. When she arrived, she requested asylum, and an immediate meeting with Ambassador Chen. Sarah Chen had aged noticeably in 8 years. The stress of guiding humanity through isolation and toward independence had taken its toll. But her eyes were still sharp, and she listened carefully as Kess laid out what she had discovered. The thrones are not just ceremonial, Kess explained, her form flickering between solid and energy as her anxiety grew. They are compliance devices, Sarah leaned forward. Explain. Kess pulled up holographic displays showing complex neurological scans. Each throne is embedded with technology that interfaces with the neural patterns of whoever sits in it. It releases specific compounds and energy patterns that alter brain chemistry. Very subtle, very gradual. Over time, the occupant becomes more agreeable, more willing to accept the status quo, less likely to challenge authority. Dr. Tanaka, who had joined the meeting, stared at the data in disbelief. They're mind control devices. Not exactly, Kess corrected. The person remains themselves. Their personality, memories, and thoughts are intact, but their emotional response to authority changes. They become more trusting, more cooperative. The council doesn't control what their representatives think. They control how intensely they're willing to fight for those thoughts. Sarah felt sick. Every species that accepted a throne has been subtly manipulated for thousands of years, Kess finished. Yes, the Council of Ascended Civilizations isn't a democracy. It's a gerontocracy maintained by chemical compliance. The oldest species, the ones who built the thrones, remain fully independent. Everyone else sits in chairs that make them agree. How long have you known this? Sarah asked. I suspected for 2 years. I only confirmed it 6 months ago when I accessed restricted archives. The founding species, the original 5 civilizations that created the Council, they knew exactly what they were building. A system that would never change because no one would want to change it strongly enough to fight. Sarah stood and walked to the window, looking down at Earth. They had been right to refuse. If they had accepted the throne, humanity would have slowly lost its edge, its independence, its willingness to challenge injustice. They would have become another voice in the chorus, singing the same song everyone else sang. We need to tell everyone, Dr. Tanaka said. Every species in the galaxy deserves to know. They won't believe us, Kess warned. The Council will call it propaganda. They'll say humanity is lying to justify their rebellion. Then we need proof they can't deny, Sarah said, turning back to them. Kess, can you remove the compliance technology from a throne without destroying it? Kess's form solidified as she considered. Possibly. If I had access to one, but the thrones are kept in the Grand Chamber under constant guard. Sarah smiled grimly. Then it's fortunate that Earth has one. It's been sitting in storage for 8 years. They worked in secret for 3 weeks. Kess carefully dismantled Earth's throne, documenting every component, every circuit, every chemical reservoir. The evidence was damning. The throne contained enough neurochemical manipulation technology to run a small hospital. It was sophisticated, elegant, and evil, but even as they worked, the galaxy was changing. 3 other species had begun questioning their relationship with the Council. The Yethrin Collective, a proud warrior species, had noticed that their representatives returned from council sessions far more willing to compromise than when they left. The Corvin hegemony had discovered historical records showing their ancestors had been fierce opponents of galactic centralization until they accepted their throne. Most significantly, the Talax Union had done the unthinkable. They had removed their throne from the council chambers and placed it in a museum. The council had been furious but couldn't act overtly without revealing their hand. The Union claimed they were preserving a historical artifact. Everyone knew what it really meant. Meanwhile, humanity's alliance with the scattered peoples had grown into something that worried the council deeply. The Free Trade Zone, as it was now called, included 47 different species. They traded freely, shared technology without restriction, and maintained mutual defense pacts. Most importantly, they operated completely outside council authority. Small species that had been paying tribute for centuries suddenly had an option. Join the Free Trade Zone and humanity's fleets would protect them. The tribute payments stopped. Council enforcers who arrived to collect found human warships waiting. And after what happened to Admiral Korth's fleet, No council commander wanted to test humanity's capabilities again. In the Grand Chamber, Executor Varn faced the reality of the council's first genuine crisis in millennia. His fellow councilors argued among themselves, their voices rising in the vast space. "We must act decisively," Matriarch Isala insisted. "Humanity is dismantling everything we've built." "We offer them the ultimatum," Varn declared. "They accept the throne and submit to the protocols, or we launch a full interdiction. No trade, no communication, no travel in or out of their space. We surround them completely." "And if they refuse?" asked Consul Thex. "Then we maintain the blockade until they collapse. They're still a young species. They cannot survive forever without resources from outside their territory." The ultimatum was delivered with great ceremony. A council delegation, larger than the first, arrived at Earth's orbital station. They carried the same throne that had been refused 8 years ago, polished and perfect. Ambassador Chen met them in the diplomatic hall, but this time she wasn't alone. Representatives from 47 scattered people species stood with her. So did delegates from the Talax Union and observers from a dozen other council species, who were quietly questioning their own thrones. "Executor Varn," Sarah said formally, "we received your ultimatum. We have prepared a response," she gestured, and a transport vehicle rolled into the hall. It was large, covered with a cloth. With a dramatic pull, the cloth fell away, revealing an empty transport container. Inside the container was a simple placard. The words were written in every major galactic language. Earth's throne was always empty, because humanity never needed permission. The silence was deafening. Sarah continued, her voice carrying through the hall and being broadcast across the galaxy through channels the Council couldn't block. "We understand what the thrones really are now. We know about the compliance technology. We have proof documented by one of your own scientists, and we're sharing that proof with everyone." Varn's crystalline face somehow managed to convey shock. "You lie. You fabricate evidence to justify your rebellion." "Then examine our throne," Sarah replied calmly. "We still have it. We've dismantled it, studied it, and documented everything. You're welcome to verify our findings, unless you're afraid of what you'll discover." The broadcast reached every council world simultaneously. Billions of beings watched as Kess presented her findings, showing neurological scans, chemical analyses, and historical records that the Council had tried to bury. The evidence was overwhelming. On the Yethrin homeworld, warriors demanded their throne be examined. On Corva Prime, scientists began immediate analysis. On 70 different worlds, citizens who had trusted their governments implicitly began asking uncomfortable questions. The Council's authority didn't collapse immediately. Systems built over 10,000 years don't fall in a day, but cracks appeared. Wide, spreading cracks that no amount of official denial could seal. Sarah watched the council delegation leave in stunned silence. They took the empty transport with them, the placard still visible through the transparent sides. That placard would be seen by billions as the delegation traveled back to the Grand Chamber. "Do you think it will work?" Dr. Tanaka asked quietly. "I think," Sarah replied, "that we just showed the galaxy what freedom looks like. And once people see it, they can't unsee it." In the Grand Chamber, hundreds of thrones sat in their designated spaces, all filled except one. Earth's throne remained empty, now not as a symbol of defiance but as a reminder that power given can be taken away, but power claimed and defended can never truly be lost. 10 years after humanity refused the throne, the Galactic Council launched its final gambit. The interdiction fleet was the largest military force assembled in 3,000 years. 500 warships from 30 different species, all bearing the Council's insignia. They jumped into human space in a carefully coordinated maneuver, emerging at strategic points around humanity's territory like a closing fist. Admiral Korth, restored to command and determined to erase the shame of his previous defeat, led the fleet. His orders were clear: establish a complete blockade, prevent any ships from entering or leaving human space, and maintain the siege until humanity surrendered. "This isn't an invasion," Korth announced in a broadcast to Earth. "This is enforcement of galactic law. You have disrupted the peace. You have spread lies about the Council. You have built an illegal alliance network. Accept the throne and the protocols, and this ends peacefully." On Earth, in the command center that had become humanity's war room, Ambassador Chen studied the tactical displays with General Okonkwo, and the other military leaders. The Council fleet vastly outnumbered humanity's combined forces. By any conventional calculation, Earth had already lost. They're expecting us to panic, General Okonkwo observed. They think we'll see their numbers and surrender. They don't understand us yet, Sarah replied. 10 years and they still don't understand. Show them. What happened next would be studied in military academies and diplomatic schools for centuries. It began with a single broadcast that went out on every frequency, through every channel, encrypted and unencrypted, to every world in the galaxy. The broadcast was simple. It showed the interior of one of the Council thrones with complete technical specifications. Neural interface nodes, chemical release mechanisms, behavioral modification programming, everything Kess had discovered, everything humanity had documented, presented in clear, undeniable detail. But that was just the opening move. The broadcast also included testimony from representatives of 47 species who had joined the free trade zone. They spoke about life. Before and after leaving the Council system, they talked about the tribute payments that had kept them poor, the restrictions that had kept them weak, the careful management that had kept them dependent. Then came the part that changed everything. "We know what you're planning," Sarah Chen's voice said in the broadcast. "Your fleet thinks it's hidden, but we've been watching you assemble it for months. We know your positions, your numbers, your capabilities, and we want you to know something important. We don't want to fight you." Admiral Korth, watching from his flagship, felt a cold twist in his stomach. "How had they known?" Sarah continued. "We're going to show you something now. Not because we want to threaten you, but because we want you to understand what you're really fighting for." Across the galaxy, on screens in homes, public spaces, and government buildings, people watched as the broadcast showed the Council's own classified files. Historical records that had been sealed for millennia. Communications between the founding species discussing the throne technology. Financial records showing the wealth extracted from tributary species. Military reports documenting corrections of species that had tried to resist. Kess had stolen more than just technical data. She had stolen the Council's secrets, all of them, and humanity had spent months verifying, organizing, and preparing to release them. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the Council's authority. On dozens of worlds, citizens who had trusted their governments for thousands of years suddenly saw the truth. The Council wasn't a protective alliance. It was a control system designed to keep the founding species in power forever. Riots broke out on 12 Council worlds within hours. On 40 more, governments faced massive protests. Species that had sent ships to join the interdiction fleet suddenly recalled them, needing those warships to maintain order at home. Admiral Korth watched his fleet disintegrate. The Yethrin Collective recalled all their vessels. The Corvin hegemony ordered their ships to return home immediately. The Talax Union, which had already removed their throne, formally announced they were withdrawing from the Council entirely and joining humanity's free trade zone. Within 6 hours, Korth's 500-ship fleet had shrunk to fewer than 200. Within 12 hours, it was down to 80. The species that remained were the founding species and their closest allies, the ones who benefited most from the existing system. "Sir," Korth's tactical officer said quietly, "we're detecting massive fleet movements in human space. They're not running. They're positioning for defense." Korth pulled up the tactical display and felt his blood run cold. Humanity had prepared for this moment. Not just military ships, but the entire free trade zone fleet. Hundreds of vessels from species the Council had dismissed as insignificant. They had been hiding using humanity's stealth technology, waiting for the Council to commit to their attack, but they weren't advancing. They were simply there, visible, ready. The message was clear. If you start this war, it won't be easy. Then Korth's communication system lit up with an incoming message from Earth. It was Captain Maria Santos, the woman who had humiliated him at their first encounter. "Admiral Korth," she said, and her voice was almost gentle, "look around you. Most of your fleet has gone home. The ones still with you are there because they benefit from the system you're defending. But ask yourself, are they really loyal to you or just to their own power?" "We still outnumber you," Korth replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes," Maria agreed. "You could probably still win this fight. A lot of beings would die on both sides. But Admiral, what would you be winning? The right to maintain a system based on lies? The right to keep using mind control devices on your allies? The right to extract tribute from species too weak to resist? Korth was silent. He had been a military officer for 40 years. He had believed he was serving a just cause, maintaining galactic peace. But the broadcasts had shown him documents he had never seen, recorded conversations between council leaders discussing how to keep subject species manageable. He thought of his own grandson, who had asked him just last week why the scattered peoples had to pay tribute if they were already so poor. Korth hadn't had a good answer then. He didn't have one now. What do you want? He asked finally. We don't want your surrender, Maria replied. We don't want to conquer anyone. We just want to be free. And we want everyone else to have that choice too. Take your fleet home, Admiral. Tell the Council that Earth's throne is staying empty. Tell them that any species that wants to remove their throne is welcome to do so. Tell them that the galaxy is big enough for different ways of living. Korth looked at the remaining ships in his fleet, 80 vessels crewed by beings who still believed in the Council's mission, or at least believed in maintaining their own privileges. He thought about the war that would follow if he gave the order to attack. The casualties, the destruction, the hatred that would poison the galaxy for generations. He thought about his grandson's question. Why do they have to pay? All ships, Korth broadcast to his fleet. We're standing down. Return to your home ports. Admiral, one of his captains protested. We have our orders. And I'm giving you new ones, Korth replied. This war is wrong. I won't start it. As the remaining council ships disengaged and began their journeys home, something unprecedented happened across the galaxy. 40 species formally withdrew from the council. 30 more demanded emergency referendums on their membership. A dozen species removed their thrones from the Grand Chamber and placed them in museums or destroyed them entirely. The council didn't collapse overnight. The founding species still controlled vast resources and territories, but their absolute authority was broken. For the first time in 10,000 years, species had a choice. Within months, the scattered peoples and the reformed council species created something new, the Galactic Commons. It was a loose federation where membership was optional, trade was free, and no one sat on a throne. Species could join, leave, or remain independent as they chose. Decisions required consensus, not submission. Sarah Chen, now in her 60s, stood in what had once been the Grand Chamber. The council had abandoned the station, leaving it to whoever wanted it. The Galactic Commons had claimed it, but they had made changes. All the thrones had been removed. The great circular room now held simple chairs arranged in small discussion groups. No hierarchy, no manipulation, just people talking to people. A young human officer approached her. Lieutenant Emma Park, Captain Park's daughter, wore the uniform of the Commons Peacekeeping Force, a volunteer organization dedicated to protecting species from actual threats. Not from independence, Ambassador Chen, Emma said formally. We're preparing the station for the first General Assembly. But there's a question. Earth's throne is still in storage. Some people think we should display it here as a memorial. What do you think? Sarah walked to the center of the chamber where Earth's throne had once been designated to sit. The space was empty now, just like it had been for 10 years. No, she said finally. Don't display it. Don't destroy it either. Keep it in storage where people can study it, learn from it. But don't give it a place of honor. That empty space right there? She pointed to the spot. That's Earth's real throne. Elena Vasquez walked through the massive doors of the council chamber. The room was huge, bigger than any stadium on Earth. Lights from 47 different alien species filled the space with colors she had never seen before. Some delegates floated in the air. Others sat in tanks of water. A few were just balls of light that pulsed when they spoke. She was humanity's voice here, the only human among thousands of aliens who had traveled the stars for thousands of years. Earth had joined the Galactic Council only 15 years ago. To these ancient beings, humans were children, newcomers who knew nothing about the real galaxy. Elena took her seat in the human section. It was small, pushed to the back of the chamber. The important species sat at the front. The Kethrak, who looked like giant insects made of metal and crystal, controlled the center. Next to them were the Vorentine, beings of pure energy that changed shape constantly. The Saltine, who lived in water suits, managed most of the galaxy's trade. The Kethrak Primarch called the meeting to order. His voice was old and tired, like rocks grinding together. He had lived for 3,000 years and ruled the council for most of that time. When he spoke, everyone listened. "We have much to discuss today," the Primarch said. "Trade agreements, border disputes, mining rights." He looked at Elena. "And complaints from our newest members." Elena stood up. Her heart was beating fast, but she kept her voice steady. 7 human colony ships have disappeared in the past year. 40,000 people are missing. We asked for help 3 months ago. Nothing has been done. The Primarch's many eyes blinked slowly. "Space is dangerous, Ambassador. Ships are lost. This is the way of things." "Not like this," Elena said. She pulled up holographic images. All 7 ships sent their last transmission from the same region. The outer reaches near the mining world called Gehenna's Gate. Then nothing. No wreckage, no distress signals, just silence. A Saltine delegate raised a water-filled tentacle. "That region is known for gravitational anomalies. Your ships were likely destroyed by natural phenomena." "Then let us search for them," Elena said. "Let us send rescue missions." The Primarch shook his head. "The outer reaches are restricted. Mining operations there are sensitive. We cannot allow random ships to interfere with Council business." "Council business?" Elena felt anger rising in her chest. "Those are our people, our families. And they chose to travel through dangerous space," the Primarch said. His voice was final. "The Council will note your concern, but we cannot investigate every lost ship. The matter is closed." Elena wanted to argue more, but she knew it was useless. She had been a diplomat long enough to know when she was being dismissed. She sat down, her hands shaking with frustration. After the meeting ended, Elena walked through the station's observation deck. Through the massive windows, she could see Axis Prime below, a neutral world where no single species could claim power. Ships from across the galaxy came and went, their engines leaving trails of light against the darkness. Her communication device buzzed. The message was encrypted, sender unknown. Elena almost deleted it, but something made her open it instead. The message was simple. "They're lying to you. Gehenna's Gate, the truth is there. But hurry. They're watching everyone now." Crix, Elena knew that name. Crix was a Saltine trader who dealt in information. He sold secrets to anyone who could pay, not someone she would normally trust. But his message made her skin cold. She tried to reply, but the channel was dead. 2 hours later, the news feeds reported that Crix's ship had exploded near a fuel station. Authorities called it an accident. A fuel leak, they said. Elena didn't believe in coincidences. She contacted Admiral Marcus Chen on a secure channel. His face appeared on her screen, stern and serious. Chen commanded Earth's home fleet, the small collection of ships that protected human space. He had never trusted the Galactic Council. "I need a favor," Elena said. "A big one." Chen listened as she explained about the missing ships, the Primarch's dismissal, and Crix's message. When she finished, Chen was quiet for a long moment. "You're asking me to send a ship into restricted space," he said finally. "If the Council finds out, they'll use it as an excuse to punish us." "I know," Elena said. "But if there's even a chance those people are alive..." Chen nodded slowly. "I'll send the Prometheus. It's a research vessel, small and fast. If something goes wrong, I can claim it was a navigation error." He paused. "But Elena, if they find something, if this is what I think it might be, everything changes." "What do you think it is?" "I think the Council isn't what we believed it to be. I think we've been naive." 3 days later, the Prometheus reached Gehenna's Gate. The planet was dark red, covered in toxic clouds. Massive mining facilities dotted its surface, their lights visible even from orbit. The ship's captain, a woman named Rodriguez, ran every scan they had. What they found made them all sick. On the surface were camps. Prison camps surrounded by energy fences. The scans showed thousands of life signs, human life signs. They were working in the mines, exposed to deadly radiation. Most of them were dying slowly. Rodriguez sent a team down in a stealth shuttle. They landed near one of the camps and used cutters to breach the fence. What they saw would haunt them forever. Humans in torn clothes, their skin covered in burns and sores. Children no older than 10 carrying heavy equipment. Families separated into different sections. Guards watched them. Kethrak warriors with weapons that sparked with electricity. One of the prisoners saw the rescue team and started crying. "You came. We thought everyone forgot about us." "Never," Rodriguez said. "We're getting you out." They managed to save 200 people before the alarms went off. Kethrak warships appeared in orbit, dropping from faster-than-light travel. The Prometheus grabbed as many survivors as possible and ran. Behind them, the captain of one of the escort ships, a man named Stevens, stayed behind to give them time. His ship exploded in a ball of fire, but not before he sent a final transmission. "Tell Earth what they did," Stevens said, his voice crackling with static. "Tell them we don't forgive this ever." The Prometheus jumped to faster than light speed and escaped. In their cargo holds, 200 survivors huddled together, free but traumatized. In the ship's computers was evidence. Videos, medical records, work logs, proof of what the Galactic Council had done. When Elena saw the footage, she couldn't speak. She just sat in her quarters and cried for an hour. Then she dried her eyes, straightened her uniform, and prepared to face the Council again. This time she wasn't asking for help. She was demanding justice, and if they refused, she would make sure every human in the galaxy knew what kind of monsters ruled the stars. The real fight was about to begin. Elena stood before the Galactic Council with 200 survivors behind her. Their burns and scars were visible to everyone. Children clung to their parents. Some people could barely stand. The evidence played on massive screens above them. Videos of the camps, medical records showing torture and experimentation, work logs that treated humans like equipment. The council chamber was silent. Even the Vorentine, who usually pulsed with constant energy, were still. "You enslaved our people," Elena said. Her voice was calm, but everyone could hear the rage underneath. "You took colonists, families, and children. You worked them to death in your mines, and when we asked for help finding them, you lied to us." The Kethrak Primarch watched the evidence with his many eyes. He didn't look surprised or ashamed. He looked annoyed, like someone had interrupted his day with minor problems. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said slowly, "you are correct that these people were detained. However, they were not colonists. They were criminals." Elena's mouth fell open. "What?" "The ships that entered the outer reaches violated council law," the Primarch explained. "That region is restricted. Anyone who enters without permission is guilty of trespassing and piracy. These people were sentenced to labor as punishment." "They didn't know the area was restricted," Elena said. "They were following old star charts. It was a mistake." "Ignorance of the law is not an excuse," a Vorentine delegate said. Its voice was like music, beautiful but cold. "The restrictions have been in place for 6,000 years. And you sentenced them without trial?" Elena pointed at a little girl in the survivors group. She was 7 years old and missing 2 fingers. "You sentenced children?" "Family units are kept together during labor sentences," the Saltine trade minister said, as if this explained everything. "It's more humane that way," Elena wanted to scream. She wanted to grab the Primarch and shake him until he understood. But she was a diplomat. She had to stay calm and use the system. "I demand a formal investigation," Elena said. "I demand these people be freed immediately. And I demand that those responsible face justice." The Primarch turned to the other council members. "We will vote on the human request." The vote took only minutes. When it was done, 38 species voted against the investigation. Only 9 voted with humanity. The Council's allies, species that humanity had helped with trade and technology, all voted no. They were too afraid to stand against the ancient powers. "The vote is decided," the Primarch announced. "No investigation will occur. However, as a gesture of goodwill, we will return the detained workers to human custody." Elena felt a tiny bit of hope. At least the survivors would go free. "In exchange," the Primarch continued, "humanity will pay reparations for the destruction of mining equipment during the illegal rescue operation. The cost is calculated at 5 trillion credits. Additionally, humanity will surrender its colony rights in sectors 7 through 23 and provide access to all advanced technology developed in the past 10 years. The hope died. Elena understood what they were doing. The price wasn't about money. It was about destroying humanity's future. Those sectors contained most of their colonies. The technology included their best defenses. If they agreed, humanity would be helpless, and if we refuse, Elena asked quietly. Then the Council will implement economic sanctions, the Primarch said. No species will trade with humanity. Your ships will be barred from Council space, and if you continue to resist, military action will be authorized. A Kethrak general stood up. He was massive, covered in weapons and armor. Your species is young, Ambassador. You have 15 ships that could fight. We have 10,000. Be wise. Elena looked at the survivors behind her. They had suffered so much. They deserved justice. but the Council was offering them cruelty wrapped in legal words. She thought about her orders from Earth. She was supposed to work within the system. Find compromise. Keep the peace. But some things couldn't be compromised. The Council has made its position clear, Elena said. Now let me make humanity's position clear. We will not pay your ransom. We will not surrender our colonies. And we will not forget what you've done to our people. The Primarch's eyes narrowed. You have 30 days to comply, Ambassador. Use that time to reconsider. I don't need 30 days, Elena said. I don't need 30 seconds. Our answer is no. Today, tomorrow, forever. No. She turned and walked out. The survivors followed her. Behind them, the Council erupted in angry buzzing, clicking, and pulsing lights. Let them be angry, Elena thought. She was done being diplomatic. The news spread across human space faster than light travel. Every human world received the evidence. They saw the camps. They saw the children. They saw the Council's cold dismissal of justice, and they saw Elena's refusal to bow. On Earth, crowds gathered in the streets, not to protest or riot, just to stand together and wait. Wait to see what their leaders would do. Would they surrender to save themselves? Or would they fight? Admiral Chen called an emergency meeting with Earth's military command. The room was filled with generals, admirals, and intelligence officers. The President of United Earth attended remotely, her face grim on the screen. Options, the President asked. We can comply, one general said. Give them what they want. Save what we can. And abandon 15,000 people still in those camps, another general snapped. Plus show every species in the galaxy that humans can be pushed around? We can't win a war against the Council, the first general argued. They have too many ships, Chen stood up. Maybe we can't win, but we can make them bleed. We can make them remember that humans don't go quietly. Admiral, the President said. What are you suggesting? Chen pulled up holographic displays. For the past 12 years since we joined the Council, I've been preparing for this day. I didn't trust them, so I built insurance. The displays showed shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, weapons factories on moons, training facilities in deep space, everything hidden from Council surveillance. We have 300 warships, Chen said, not civilian vessels converted for defense. Real warships built for combat. We have weapons the Council has never seen. We have 5 million trained soldiers, and we have something else they don't have. What's that? The President asked. We have nothing to lose, Chen said. They think we'll surrender because we're scared. But they're wrong. They crossed the line when they took our people. Now they'll learn what humans do when you back us into a corner. The room was quiet. Everyone understood what Chen was suggesting. War, real war. Against an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 200,000 years. The President looked at each face on the screens. Every world leader, every military commander. We should put this to a vote. All human worlds. Let the people decide. The vote happened over 3 days. 94% of humanity voted the same way. The message was clear. They would fight. They would bleed. They would die if necessary, but they wouldn't abandon their people. Not ever. Elena delivered the final message to the Galactic Council. She stood alone this time, facing the thousands of aliens who thought they ruled the stars. We came to you in peace, Elena said. We wanted to be part of something greater. You betrayed that trust. You enslaved our people. You demanded we bow to injustice. Humanity's answer is no. She removed her ambassador badge and dropped it on the floor. The sound echoed through the silent chamber. We withdraw from the Galactic Council. We will free our people, and we will never forgive what you've done. Consider this your only warning. Stay away from human worlds, because if you come for us, we will show you what fury looks like. She walked out for the last time. Behind her, the Primarch called for order, but his voice was drowned out by chaos. The Council had never faced defiance like this. They didn't know what to do, but they would learn. Very soon they would learn. Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, humanity's first true warship. Around him, 300 vessels waited in the darkness of space. They had trained for this moment, prepared for it, feared it. Now it was here. All ships report ready, his tactical officer said. Chen nodded. He had spent 12 years building this fleet in secret, using asteroid bases where Council surveillance couldn't reach, mining resources from dead moons, training crews in deep space where no one would notice. The Council thought humanity had 15 defensive ships. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Begin Operation Fury," Chen said. "Target Gehenna's Gate." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed. The Council had given humanity 30 days to surrender. Chen was giving them an answer in 4. On Earth, people gathered around screens to watch. Every human world did the same. They knew their military was moving. They knew war had begun. But they didn't know if their people would come home. Dr. Amira Okonkwo watched from her lab. She was a scientist, not a soldier. She had spent years studying alien life, making friends across the galaxy. She believed in peace and cooperation. But even she couldn't forgive what the Council had done. Sometimes, she thought, peace requires people willing to fight for it. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Gehenna's Gate system. The Kethrak garrison was expecting diplomats and lawyers. Instead, they saw 300 warships arranged in attack formation. The garrison commander sent a confused message. "Unidentified vessels, you are in restricted space. Identify yourselves immediately." Chen's response was simple. "We're here for our people. Get out of the way or be destroyed." The Kethrak didn't get out of the way. They had 50 warships and thought that was enough. They had shields designed to stop energy weapons, armor built to survive missile impacts, tactics perfected over thousands of years of warfare. They didn't expect railguns. Human ships opened fire with weapons that launched metal rods at incredible speeds. The rods punched through Kethrak shields like they weren't there. Ships split apart. Stations exploded. In the first 5 minutes, the garrison lost 20 vessels. The Kethrak commander finally understood. These weren't civilians playing at war. These were predators. He screamed orders to fall back, to regroup, to call for reinforcements. But human ships were already moving, already firing, already everywhere at once. Marine assault ships landed on the planet's surface. Lieutenant Sarah Kim led her squad through the same camps where prisoners had suffered. This time they came with weapons and armor and fury. The Kethrak guards tried to fight back. They were good soldiers, well-trained and fearless. But the Marines had something to fight for. Every prisoner they saw, every child they freed made them fight harder. Kim found a Kethrak officer trying to delete computer records. She shot the consul and grabbed him by his armored throat. "Where are the other camps?" she demanded. The Kethrak clicked his mandibles in their version of laughter. "You think this is the only one? We have camps on 30 worlds. You can't save them all." Kim hit him hard enough to crack his helmet. "Watch us." 4 hours after the battle began, it was over. Every Kethrak ship was destroyed or captured. Every camp was liberated. 15,000 humans were freed, along with thousands of prisoners from other species. The galaxy learned something important that day. Humans didn't make threats they wouldn't keep. Chen broadcast the footage everywhere. Freed prisoners hugging their rescuers. Destroyed slave camps burning. Kethrak warships floating dead in space. His message was only 3 words long. This is beginning. The Galactic Council emergency session was chaos. Species shouted at each other in 100 different languages. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others urged caution. A few very quietly wondered if the Council had finally pushed too far. The Kethrak general who had threatened Elena slammed his weapon on the floor. "They attacked our forces, destroyed our property. This cannot stand. I demand we mobilize the full Council armada." "To do what?" a small delegate asked nervously. "They knew exactly where to hit us." "How many other secrets do they know? How many hidden ships do they have?" "It doesn't matter," the general growled. "We have 10,000 ships. They have hundreds. Numbers will crush them." The Primarch raised his hand for silence. When he spoke, his ancient voice was cold with anger. "The humans have made themselves enemies of the Council. All member species are authorized to attack human vessels. Trade with humanity is forbidden. Any species that helps them will face the same punishment." He turned his many eyes to the displays showing human ships. "We will gather the armada. We will surround their worlds. And we will show them what happens when children challenge their elders. If they want war, we will give them extinction." The Council voted. Only 12 species voted against war. The rest wanted blood. On Earth, Chen addressed the fleet. "The Council is mobilizing. 10,000 ships will come for us. They'll hit our colonies, attack our trade routes, and eventually strike Earth itself." He paused, looking at the faces of his crew, young and old, veterans and new recruits, all of them knowing what was coming. "We can't match their numbers," Chen continued. But we don't need to. We just need to make them hurt. Every ship they lose, every attack they fail, makes other species question whether the Council can protect them. We're not fighting to conquer the galaxy. We're fighting to be free. While the military prepared, Dr. Okonkwo worked on a different kind of weapon. She reached out to her contacts across the galaxy. Scientists and researchers who believed the Council had gone too far. She shared the evidence of the slave camps. Not just human prisoners, but aliens from dozens of species. This could be your people next time, she told them. The Council uses laws to justify evil. Today it's humans. Tomorrow it's you. Her message spread through underground networks. On 40 worlds, protests began. Small at first, just a few people holding signs. But seeds of doubt once planted grow quickly. The Saltine were the first to notice. They controlled most galactic trade and could see the pattern. Shipping routes were becoming unstable. Insurance costs were rising. War was expensive and it would cost them trillions. A Saltine merchant prince named Vothis sent Elena a secret message. This war is bad for business. What would it take for humanity to accept peace? Elena's response was simple. Justice, freedom for all slaves, trials for those responsible, and the right to defend ourselves, nothing less. The Council will never agree to that, Vothis said. Then the war continues, Elena replied, and your profits disappear. Vothis thought about this for a long time. He was a businessman, not a warrior. He could see that humanity wouldn't surrender, and a war without end would destroy the trade networks that made him wealthy. He began talking to other Saltine, quietly, carefully, planning for the day when they might need to choose between the Council and their credits. Meanwhile, 3 other species watched everything with growing interest. The Arxen, the Hollows, and the Meridian Collective had their own grievances with the Council, old injustices they had been forced to accept. Now they saw humans fighting back and winning. If humans could do it, maybe they could too. The galaxy was changing. The old order that had existed for 200,000 years was starting to crack. And in the command center of the Indomitable, Admiral Chen watched his tactical displays and smiled grimly. Let them come, he told his officers. Let them bring their 10,000 ships. We'll show them that humans don't surrender. We don't bow. And we sure as hell don't forgive. The Council Armada was 3 weeks away. 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks to get ready for the biggest battle humanity had ever fought. 3 weeks until they learned what fury really meant. The Council Armada arrived like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. 10,000 ships from 30 different species, each one armed with weapons that could destroy cities. They formed a line stretching across space, facing the boundary of human territory. Admiral Chen watched them come. His fleet was positioned along what they called the Terran Line. 300 warships backed by defensive stations, minefields, and drone swarms. It wasn't enough. Everyone knew it, but they would fight anyway. The Kethrak general commanded the armada from his flagship, a massive vessel the size of a small moon. He sent a final message to Chen. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Resist and we will make examples of your worlds. Chen's response was to open fire. Human railguns spoke first, launching metal rods at relativistic speeds. The front line of the armada exploded as rounds tore through shields and armor. 50 ships died in the first salvo, but 50 more took their place. Then 100 more. The armada kept coming like an ocean wave, endless and unstoppable. The battle became chaos. Ships fought at point-blank range. Explosions lit up the darkness. Debris from destroyed vessels created hazards for everyone. The defensive stations proved to be mobile, repositioning constantly to avoid concentrated fire. Human captains used tactics the Council had never seen. False retreats, ambushes, coordinated strikes that targeted support ships instead of capital vessels. Lieutenant Sarah Kim commanded a boarding party that took over a Kethrak supply ship. They didn't destroy it. They reprogrammed its identification codes and sent it back to the Armada's supply lines. 3 hours later, it detonated near a fuel depot. The explosion destroyed 40 ships at once. That's for the children in the camps, Kim said quietly. The first week of battle cost the Council 1,400 ships. Human losses were 89 vessels. The numbers looked good on paper, but Chen knew they couldn't sustain this. The Council could replace their ships. Humanity couldn't. Then the Vorentine tried something new. The Vorentine were beings of pure energy, capable of existing inside computer systems. They had never used this ability in war before, considering it beneath them, but desperation breeds innovation. A Vorentine entity infiltrated the Indomitable's main computer, intending to shut down life support. Instead, it encountered something unexpected: a human hacker named Marcus Reed and an AI named Ares working together. Reed had been a criminal before the war, arrested for breaking into corporate systems. Now he was humanity's best digital weapon, and Ares was an AI that had developed something no alien AI had: personality, humor, and anger. The Vorentine entity tried to overwhelm Ares with logic puzzles, but Ares responded with memes, paradoxes, and illogical arguments that made no sense but worked anyway. The Vorentine, used to purely logical systems, couldn't adapt. "Yo, Sparkle friend," Ares said in digital space. "Did you ever consider that maybe you're just a really confused flashlight?" The Vorentine entity froze, trying to process the statement. In that moment, Reed trapped it in an isolated system. Then Ares weaponized it, corrupting its code with human creativity and chaos. They sent it back to the Vorentine command ships. The corrupted entity spread like a virus through the Vorentine fleet. Ships stopped responding to commands. Some flew in circles. Others just turned off. The entire Vorentine force, 2,000 ships strong, withdrew from the battle in confusion. It was the first time the Vorentine had been defeated in 50,000 years. While the battle raged, Dr. Okonkwo worked her own kind of warfare. She had convinced 300 alien scientists to speak out against the Council. They published research showing that the slave labor system had existed for millennia, targeting dozens of species. The Council had always claimed these were legal labor sentences, but the evidence proved otherwise. More importantly, she reached out to the Saltine merchant Prince Vothis. "Your people control the supply lines, keeping the Armada fed. Without you, this war ends," Vothis calculated the numbers. The war was already costing him more than he could make in a decade. And if humanity actually won, which was starting to look possible, they would remember who stood against them. "What guarantee do I have?" Vothis asked. "If we help you, the Council will turn on us." "Then help us win quickly," Okonkwo said. "Join us, bring your fleets. End this before more people die." After 2 days of discussion with other Saltine leaders, Vothis made his choice. The Saltine fleet, 1,500 ships strong, withdrew from the Armada. More than that, they blocked the supply routes through their territory. The Armada's logistical support collapsed overnight. The Kethrak general screamed in rage when he learned of the betrayal, but there was nothing he could do. Half his ships were running low on fuel and ammunition. His attack stalled. That's when 3 other species made their move. The Orcs in the Hollows and the Meridian Collective had been watching. They saw humans fighting back and winning. They saw the Saltine abandon the Council without punishment. They saw the ancient order cracking. They declared independence from the Council and asked humanity for help liberating their own people from similar camps. Suddenly, the Council was fighting on 5 fronts instead of 1. The Kethrak general made a desperate decision. He would attack Axis Prime itself, the symbolic heart of the Council. If he could hold it, he could force the rebellious species back in line and crush humanity's hope. Admiral Chen saw the Armada moving and understood immediately. They're going for Axis Prime. If they get there, they'll use it to legitimize their authority. Then we get there first, his tactical officer said. That's exactly what they want, Chen replied. They're better at defending than attacking. But if we can beat them there, take Axis Prime from them, the galaxy will see the Council is finished. The human fleet jumped to faster than light speed, racing the Armada to Axis Prime. They arrived 6 hours ahead and found the planet defended by the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Orbital platforms with shields that could stop anything. Planetary cannons that could destroy capital ships. Automated defenses that had never failed in 10,000 years. How do we crack this? Captain Rodriguez asked from her ship. Chen stared at the defenses and made a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. We need volunteers for a one-way mission. Silence filled the communication channels. Then Captain Sarah Osi spoke up. I'll do it. Captain, Chen began. My crew already voted, Osei said. We talked about it last night. Someone has to do this. Might as well be us. Her ship, the Valiant, was loaded with antimatter bombs. Enough explosive power to crack a moon. The plan was simple and terrible. Fly straight at the shield generator and detonate on impact. The Valiant accelerated toward Axis Prime. Defense platforms fired everything they had. OC's crew took turns piloting, replacing those who fell wounded. The ship's hull burned away. Life support failed, but they kept going. In the last moments, Ose recorded a message. "Tell my daughter I love her. Tell Earth we did our duty. And tell the Council. This is what happens when you make humans choose between surrender and sacrifice. We choose sacrifice every time." The Valiant hit the shield generator at full speed. The antimatter detonated. The explosion was visible from orbit, a miniature sun that lasted 3 seconds. When it faded, the shields were down. 300 crew members were gone, including Captain Ose. The human fleet poured through the gap. They didn't occupy Axis Prime. They just broadcast live footage from the Council chambers themselves, showing the galaxy that the invincible Council could bleed. When the Kethrak general arrived 12 hours later, he found human ships in orbit and his political masters in chaos. Species were arguing. Some wanted to negotiate. Others demanded the war continue. A few suggested abandoning the Council entirely. The general decided to end it with one stroke. He ordered a planetary bombardment of Earth itself. Kill billions. Make humanity's victory meaningless through genocide. But when he gave the order, half his fleet refused. They had seen too much death. They knew the war was lost. Some were simply too afraid of what humanity would do in revenge. The Council, united for 200,000 years, fractured in front of the entire galaxy. And in that moment, everyone knew the old order was dead. Elena Vasquez walked through the ruined Council chambers. Smoke still drifted from damaged systems. The great seats of power sat empty. The species that had ruled for 200,000 years were hiding in their ships, afraid to show their faces. She found the Kethrak Primarch in a small observation room, looking out at the stars. He seemed smaller now, older. His ancient armor was scratched and dented. When he turned to face her, his many eyes were tired. "Come to celebrate your victory?" the Primarch asked. "No," Elena said. "I came to talk about what happens next." The Primarch made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "Next? There is no next. You've destroyed everything. The order we built, the peace we maintained. When we fall, chaos will consume the galaxy." "You didn't maintain peace," Elena said, sitting down across from him. "You maintained fear. You called enslavement justice. You punished anyone who questioned you. That's not peace, that's tyranny. And you think you can do better?" The Primarch's voice was bitter. "Your species has been in space for less than a century. You know nothing about governing thousands of worlds." "You're right," Elena admitted. "We don't know everything. But we know that power without accountability is evil. We know that justice matters more than order, and we know that every species deserves freedom." The Primarch was quiet for a long time. Outside the window, ships from dozens of species circled, waiting to see what would happen next. The galaxy was holding its breath. "What do you want?" the Primarch finally asked. "End the war," Elena said. "Free all the slaves. Put the people responsible on trial. And help us build something better than the Council. And if I refuse?" Elena met his eyes. "Then Admiral Chen will finish what we started. We've fought the biggest fleet in the galaxy and we're still here. If you make us choose between peace and justice, we'll choose justice. Even if it means burning everything down." The Primarch understood then. Humanity wasn't bluffing. They would keep fighting until they won or died trying. And with half the galaxy already in rebellion, continuing the war would only spread the destruction. "You've taken everything from me," the Primarch said quietly. "My authority, my legacy, the order I spent 3,000 years building." "You took it from yourself," Elena replied. "When you decided that might makes right. When you chose cruelty over compassion. We just showed the galaxy what you really were." The next day, representatives from 60 species gathered on Axis Prime. The Vorentine came, curious and analytical. The Saltine came, seeing opportunity in change. Even the Kethrak came, though they sat in the back and spoke little. The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. Some species wanted revenge against the Council. Others wanted to restore the old system with minor reforms. A few wanted to go home and pretend none of this happened. Elena stood before them all and laid out humanity's terms. No more slavery. No more forced labor. No more calling evil justice because it's wrapped in legal language. Every species has the right to defend themselves. Every species gets equal representation. And no one, no matter how old or powerful, is above the law. A small delegate from a species humanity had never met stood up. "The humans are right. My people suffered under council law for 10,000 years. We stayed quiet because we were afraid. But seeing humans fight back gave us courage. We want the same rights they're demanding. Another delegate agreed. Then another. Soon half the room was speaking up, sharing stories of injustice and oppression that the council had hidden for millennia. The Kethrak representatives tried to argue, but their voices were drowned out. The Vorentine, ever logical, calculated that resistance was futile and agreed to the new terms. The Saltine enthusiastically supported any system that improved trade. The Treaty of New Dawn was signed 4 weeks after the battle ended. Its main points were simple. The Galactic Council was dissolved. In its place, the Galactic Confederation would be formed. Every member species had equal voting rights. All slavery and forced labor was banned. War criminals would face trial. Humanity received full sovereignty and reparations for their people. And most importantly, no species could claim authority over another. The cost of victory became clear in the days after. 47,000 human military personnel had died. 8 colony worlds were heavily damaged. The economy would take decades to recover. Every human world held memorial services for the fallen. Captain Sarah Osei's name was the first inscribed on the Monument of Heroes on Earth. Her daughter, only 12 years old, touched the quantum storage that preserved her mother's memory. Did she have to die? The girl asked Elena. Elena knelt beside her. Your mother chose to save millions of people. That's what heroes do. They sacrifice so others can be free. I wish she had chosen me instead, the girl whispered. Elena had no answer for that. Some prices were too high even in victory. Admiral Chen retired with full honors. His body was scarred from the war, but his spirit was at peace. He had done what he promised, made the council bleed and earned humanity's freedom. At his retirement ceremony, he gave a short speech. We didn't win because we were stronger. We won because we were desperate. Because we refused to accept injustice. Because we proved that sometimes the only way to get peace is to be willing to fight for it. Dr. Okonkwo received the Galactic Peace Prize, the first human ever honored. She used her acceptance speech to call for unity. We fought a war. We won our freedom. Now comes the harder part, building trust. The old council failed because they ruled through fear. Let's build something better. Something based on cooperation, not domination. 5 years later, Elena stood in the new Confederation Hall, watching representatives from 80 species debate a proposal for collective exploration of uncharted space. They argued and disagreed, but they also listened and compromised. It was messy and slow and frustrating. It was also beautiful. A young Kethrak diplomat approached her. He was from a new generation, one that had grown up after the war. Ambassador Vasquez, I wanted to apologize for what my people did. You weren't responsible, Elena said gently. I know, but someone needs to say it. We were wrong. We used our age to justify cruelty. We called it order when it was really oppression. He hesitated. Are we forgiven? Elena thought about Captain Osei, about the children in the camps, about the 47,000 who died. Forgiveness is earned, not given. Your generation has a chance to prove you're different from those who came before. Show us through actions, not words. The young Kethrak nodded seriously and walked away. Elena watched him go, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The galaxy was changing. Human technology became highly sought after, but humans also shared medical advances, agricultural techniques, and cultural exchanges. Earth became a hub where species that had never trusted each other could meet on neutral ground. The Kethrak withdrew into isolation, their empire diminished but surviving. Some of their leaders faced trial for war crimes. Others fled to the Outer Rim. The species as a whole was learning humility, though the lesson came hard. The Vorentine adapted to the new reality with their usual logic. They became valued advisors to the Confederation, offering analysis and mediation. They never apologized for their role in the war, but they never repeated their mistakes either. The Saltine thrived in the new order. With stable trade and no fear of arbitrary council laws, their economy boomed. Vodis became one of the wealthiest beings in the galaxy and humanity's strongest economic ally. Elena looked out at the assembled species and remembered the day she had first entered the old council chambers. She had been so hopeful then, believing in cooperation and peace. The galaxy had taught her a harsh lesson. Sometimes peace requires war. Sometimes justice demands fury, but the war was over now. The fury had passed. What remained was the hard work of building something better. She thought about humanity's journey from Earth to the stars. They had come seeking friendship and found slavery. They had asked for justice and received contempt. They had been forced to fight a war they didn't want, but they had won. And more importantly, they had shown the galaxy that even the most powerful can fall when they forget that might doesn't make right. Elena smiled to herself. Humanity had exploded with fury when the line was crossed. They had burned away the old order. Now they would help build something new, something better, something that remembered the price of freedom and valued it accordingly. The galaxy would never forget what happened when humans said no, and that was exactly how it should be.